Thank you for being on this show. Omatseye is my name. You were a vice chancellor of university, and we all know how you did at Ilorin to raise the standard there. Now, do you get frustrated as a former VC with your former colleague?
What I think is that there are very few of heads of institutions who are unconscious of the full weight of the responsibilities they are carrying. And such people, because they would just feel that I'm not culpable. Once it's not done by me, I'm not culpable. Oh, it is the registrar. Oh, it's the bursar. Forgetting that they have overall responsibility for what happens in the institution. I have seen so many cases that a vice chancellor or a rector or a provost will be pointing fingers at a subordinate as the cause of it. I think the heads of institutions must realize that they are in charge. And as a result of that, they must be conscious of what goes on in the institution and put some mechanism in place to checkmate those who might want to derail the system. I think, except for that, when I was Vice Chancellor of the University of Ilorin, and when I was representing the Association of Vice Chancellors of Nigerian Universities, my position at that time vis-a-vis JAMB has not changed till today. My position is that institutions all over the world, part of the freedom, part of the characteristics of tertiary institutions, particularly universities, is that the institution should have the right to determine who to admit. And which means they should initiate, they should set their own standard. They should set standard. And fortunately, the law establishing JAMB makes that clear, that JAMB will do that in consultation, admission in consultation with the institutions. I've always believed that institutions should also benefit from whatever accrues to JAMB as a result of I'm an advocate of that. And my colleagues, and that's why we look for a way of making sure that at least every year we return about $500 million to the institutions through one way or the other. So all those things I stood for as Vice Chancellor, vis-a-vis JAMB, I still believe in those things, and I am pursuing such positions clearly because they are positions that are not meant or are not based on the fact that I belong to the other side of the divide. So wherever I find myself, I still believe that the right thing to do is to key into the global standards in whatever we do.
Now there was this announcement that each university should present its own cutoff point. And some people have seen this as dumbing down. I mean, there has to be at least a minimum qualification that would think that, please, we don't want this to happen. It will get to a point where maybe in future somebody will say, oh, you came to that university with 120 or 160, and well, I want the one that had 200. I think they had a better standard.
You see, it's a matter of communication. Let me tell you the truth. What we have done this year is what we have been doing in the last 10 years. But we had communication problems. I don't know where people got this issue of national cutoff from. It had never been. What had always been happening in the last 10 years, to the best of my knowledge, is that each institution determines its cutoff point. And it will say, any candidate, and this is not arbitrary. You will look at the number of candidates that had applied to your university, look at the vacancy available, and you now say, look, I cannot go below this. draw the line. And each institution will do that, and we will come to what we call policy meeting, national policy meeting. Every institution will submit its own determined cutoff point. And if you say mine is 200, you can never admit 199. If you say mine is 180, you cannot admit 179. But we don't impose the minimum on any institution. We don't even allow it. For example, University of Ibadan would say 200 is my minimum. University of Ibadan cannot recommend to JAMB for approval anybody with 199. Because that's the announced and publicized cutoff, or you cannot allow some people to change from your institution and then be recommending lower candidates. So once you announce it, that is it. But what we do is that there are people who recommend, there are institutions who will recommend ridiculously low cutoff. And it will be based on the fact that they have few candidates applying to them. What we normally tell them, this is not acceptable. The minimum acceptable to us is X. We can ask candidates from oversubscribed institutions to change to your institution so that you can have to beef you up. So that's what we have been doing. But unfortunately, the public will say the cutoff is the minimum that we mention. So what we did this year was to keep quiet completely about the minimum. And except about 4 or 5 institutions went below, and we told them this is the minimum quietly without having to publicize it, because in the past when we publicize the minimum, emphasis will be on the minimum. Somebody will say your cutoff is 160, my child scored 250, as if the 160 you are talking about is universal and national. Every institution has its own cutoff. And again, what you call...
And its own room too, its own space.
Its own space. Yes. And what you call cutoff is not really the cutoff. Something happened at the University of Ilorin about 2 years, last year. The University of Ilorin says anybody who wants to read medicine is 250 and above. And this candidate, I think, scored 230 or 240. So he was off. But he applied to be changed to biochemistry. And of course, he was allowed to change to biochemistry. Then he took their post-UTME examination. At the post-UTME examination, he scored 90-something%. So when you add the two, as they would normally add, this person performed better than the first person on the medical ranking. And the boy came back to say, look,
I'm your best.
I applied to read medicine. You said I cannot read medicine. But at the end of the day, not only that I'm the first in biochemistry, I'm also the first even if you return me to medicine. So you have to call the university and say, look, you cannot predetermine
yes.
and without those people. Let everybody, it is after you have added everything that you will have the best candidate imagined. You have MTN, for example, now. You have many, the Nigerian Society of Engineers. All of them will come and say they want the best 10, scholarship for the best 10 JAMB candidates. I will tell them, look, what are you... They are still going to be subjected
to other
tests.
Yes.
And this, what you call cutoff, is the first stage. Yes. Something happened. One of them gave the scholarship to somebody, and that person was not able to make credit in mathematics. Wow. To go into the... So you have the scholarship, but don't university to go because you do not have the prima facie qualification. So ranking does not even come in. Yes. Because the person will not... That's why we are urging those who want to award scholarship. Let us determine the first 10, the best 100, only after everything had been added. If you apply to University of Lagos, you apply to University of Ibadan, and many other institutions like that, there are 3 stages. Or you apply to NDA, or Nigerian Police Academy in Wudil. They have 4 categories. UTME is just 1. After UTME, you have post-UTME. In some institutions, after post-UTME, they add the quality of the O-level. The O-level grade had to be computed into it. And in NDA, physical exercise, performance at physical exercise is also added to it. So if you are taking somebody and you have recommended and you have celebrated him because he scored the best in UTME, UTME is not the qualification for admission. UTME is a tool for ranking those who are presumed qualified. It's not the final determinant. It doesn't determine the qualification, because even if a candidate scores 400 over 400, if he or she does not possess 5 O-level, it's going nowhere. Or if he performs and he goes for post-UTME and he scores 20%, by the time you add the two, the 20% will bring him down. So that's why we are telling people that what they call cutoff is even just part of the cutoff.
Now, there's also an important question I've always wanted to ask you, is that since you started work at JAMB, have you at any time communicated with any of your predecessors? Have they communicated with you? Have they had any interaction with you about what you have been doing?
All my predecessors who are alive participate in the examination annually. They are part of the examination. They monitor, they give reports, because you cannot underestimate their contribution to the development of this board. Because of institutional knowledge. They are of value. Recently, I was holding a meeting with ABU on IJMB. I had to call a former registrar of JAMB who was able to guide us that this was what happened, this was how we arrived at this was what, and we found out that what he said was actually fine, and where to find the documents that we couldn't find. So he was able to guide us. We get you can't, because JAMB was established 1978, and some people who are running the place, it would be foolish of an administrator to now say, because I can introduce some technology, I can do some things, then you discard the memory. We are always in touch, and they actively participated, except for last year when a number, maybe 2 of them, could not participate. Well, the last examination process or journey day was in the Southwest, and he monitored and he submitted his report. So we have always been in touch. We were one way or the other connected, and you may disagree on operation, but the fact is that we are together, and we are from the same community. We are academics.
The reason I'm asking is that you've become so consequential in your delivery, your stewardship, and many people have said, what has been going on in JAMB over these years? That, for instance, you've been how will I call it now? You've been given a record of your financial doings here and giving back a lot of money. Like, why were the predecessors not doing that? What happened to the money in JAMB? Did that not intimidate them that, look at this man has shown us up?
No.
Has exposed us?
No. Rather, I think the opposite is the case. I do not know any of my predecessors that had not come here to appreciate what we are doing. Because if we were to start JAMB in 2016, we would not be where we are today. I am standing on the shoulders of my predecessors who had prepared the ground for me. Again, many people will not understand that when this was started in 1978, we do not have 2 million candidates.
So we have always had a lot of candidates. I remember one of the very earliest JAMB candidates, you know. I remember we were very many too.
Yeah, you may be, but you are not up to 2 million. That is one point. And at that time, of course, there will be so many things to be done. I am not in any way saying that we couldn't have performed better in terms of efficiency, in terms of cost saving. But what I'm saying is that we cannot just say because somebody came in 2016 and he was able to change the process and was able to record, then condemn everybody that has come before.
I'm sure my viewers will think this man is trying to be very modest.
No,
he's trying to be nice to his predecessors.
Let me tell you, anybody who knows me will know that I will not hide from, I don't shy from saying things as they appear to me. But what I'm saying is that I've been preceded by credible persons. There might be one or two persons who might have done what they were not supposed to do. And of course, when people start talking of, where were the auditors when they were doing what they were doing?
Good question.
Where were you see, people, they just want to scapegoat some people. Because as far as I'm concerned, they couldn't have done, anyone who had done anything wrong couldn't have done it alone. Many people, a number of them, will have done what they did in collaboration with some other people.
Exactly.
So the way I look at it is that if somebody had done what is wrong, we isolate the person and deal with the issue. Rather than thinking that anybody, like when I came here to JAMB, I found so many staff who had committed one atrocity or the other. We exposed them. Some were talking of snake and so on. We exposed them.
Did you kill the snake or the snake disappeared?
I think the snake is in court because they are being prosecuted.
You should beware of venom.
Yeah. But the fact is that these are just 20, 30 out of 1,600 otherwise good people.
Yes.
So we shouldn't allow the fact that there are few people to then create an impression that everybody is bad. Those who are bad should be treated as bad and be dealt with according to the law.
Now, I also want to find out this question of corruption in Nigerian society. It always has a way of affecting the capacity to do good.
Yes.
You will leave eventually this position. What is the guarantee that you will have enough structures to prevent a corruption of even the system? Because I've come to learn over my study of politics and administration and systems that systems are good, but people are even better. The system fails, no matter how great it is, when you have a bad person. Look, America almost collapsed because of
a bad leader.
Yes, yes.
I think there is nothing we can do about such things. But as much as possible, we institutionalize what we are doing. For example, I do not expect anybody to come and tell the federal government that I cannot make X return. To the government will ask, what is happening?
What's happening? Ole, did this. What are you doing?
Yes, I can.
And you have more people now.
I cannot expect anybody to come and tell the staff that your allowances will have to be reduced.
Or that you cannot have free meals anymore.
You cannot have. There are issues. There are things that we have institutionalized. Every year, we commit 500 million to the institutions as a part of our own contribution to what they are doing. You can't come back and say, no, we will have no money to give to you because of A or because of B. What I think is the right thing to do, JAMB in quotes, that is our colleagues in other climes, government does not fund them. No government funds UCAS in UK. JAMB should be made to fund itself. Even the salary being paid by government till now I believe is an undue indulgence. If you compare notes with what goes on elsewhere, I believe that this institution, JAMB, can pay for itself fully and can also make returns to the institutions, if not to government. And government can do it in such a way. For instance, we give an award of about 500 million to 5 institutions. We are moving towards consolidating that now. That instead of giving to 5 institutions, we give to 1. So that instead of giving 100 million, 75 million, like this year you give 75 million to Igbesa, you give 75 million to Ilorin, 75 million to ABU, 75 million to Ukari, and so on and so forth. It is fragmented. The new idea is let all the parameters be consolidated, and any institution, every institution will work for it, and it will be more competitive, and you know that once you win it for a year, you take 500.
You take everything. Winner takes all.
Others will give them certificate of participation. Maybe we just give them 5 million for their efforts.
But the decision has to be democratic. I don't think it will pass. Some know they cannot make it.
But one way or the other, I think the right thing to do is to inspire the institutions, and that's what we are trying to do.
Now, the last question, as you look forward to the next 5 years, what do you really think you are going to emphasize?
We are going to emphasize what we have been emphasizing. Number 1 is that we will be accountable. That is, everybody from the head to the toe in JAMB, we will be accountable for what we are doing. We are going to be technology conscious. As much as possible, we use technology. We are going to care for the welfare of our staff. We are going to make sure that anybody who works with JAMB, once he or she is reasonable enough, he or she will appreciate what JAMB will contribute in terms of his or her welfare. But if somebody is used to corruption and is expecting what he had been stealing before, we will not steal for anybody. But within available resources, we do our best to make our staff comfortable. And finally, there will be discipline. We will make sure that everybody, in holding everybody accountable, there will be discipline. We will, because if you compromise discipline, somebody will say, look, I stole just 6 million. Somebody told me I stole just 6 million, and you are harassing me. Well, some people are stealing billion. I am not put in charge of those people who are stealing billion. Here, you cannot steal the 6 million. So there must be discipline. And where the contradiction comes is that there are staff members who are interested in welfare, but they are not interested in discipline. And government itself appears to be interested in discipline. They are not interested in welfare. So you have to find a way to marry these two. Because when you go to the appropriate agency of government, salaries and wages and income commission, to argue for increase in the welfare of the staff, they will be saying, no. You know, there is no money. If they are making money and you don't want them to steal, the best thing is to improve on what they are take home, on what they are doing. That will encourage them. Government agencies responsible for that, they are resisting any push to increase the wage bill. But at the same time, they want more money. The staff themselves, they want more money. But when you ask them to do what will bring more money, they are not ready to do it. They are saying you are over pushing them. Why should we work on Saturday? Why should we work till midnight? Some people, and that's why when we provide meal here for 1 day meal, it's not doing the staff members any major favor, because they work after after taking the meal, they don't go home. They continue to work. Yes. And they just break to go and take their meal. Instead of taking 1 hour, 1.5 hours, going for to go and
find out where they will eat the right meal.
They will eat. And many of them will say, look, I've gone for lunch. You can't say somebody should not go for lunch. So that improves on our own performance by just providing a meal. And you will see, if you come here up to 7, 8 p.m., you find staff on their desk. So I believe that we should weigh the two and strike a balance that will not compromise the interests of either party.
Thank you very much for being on this show. I've had here Professor Is'haq Oloyede, the Registrar of the Joint Admissions and Matriculations Board, JAMB. Thank you very much for being on this show.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure having you in our village.
Thank you. Thank you for being on this show, and you can join up with me on my column at www.samomatseye.com. And until next time, be good.